Things we know now that we did not know about the murder on 54th Street. This is part 2 in that murder. We're going to tell you all about the guy who did it and some things we know about him now that we did not know before. All of that and more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. It is what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. Charlie Crimebuster, Charliecrimebuster.com, and PeacemakerNetwork.com are copyrights owned by Charlie Crimebuster. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Welcome to the Charlie Crime Train. Hey, we've been talking about that sensational murder on 54th Street. You know, where the insurance executive there of United Health was gunned down right in plain view on the street, caught on the video. We're going to tell you all about the guy who did it. That's right, the guy who did it. We'll be telling you all about that in this episode. Hey, also, I want to take a moment to invite you to reach out with a shout out. Reach out with a shout out. You reach me, Charliecrimebuster, gmail.com. You can ask questions. You can make suggestions about maybe some future episodes you would like to see, or maybe a case you'd like to see us coverage. Hey, you can also object. In other words, you could lodge objections. You say, hey, boy, I believe you were just out in the woods on that last one there, Charlie Crimebuster. I don't believe you got that right at all. Hey, it is a safe place, my friend, so just reach out with a shout out. If you'd like to support us, please go to peacemakerNetwork.com. PeacemakerNetwork.com. There we talk about those brave men and women running toward danger instead of away from danger. Yeah, I'm talking about law enforcement and those first responders who are always there when you need them. And, of course, the brave men and women of the military. You can read about how we support those, and you can help us support those and support the podcast by becoming a badge, BADGE supporter. PeacemakerNetwork.com. Hey, we've been covering this for some time now, these type of cases. We are, I guess you might say, true crime junkies. And we have a whole bunch of true crime junkies that follow us. So we would like you to get caught up on other episodes that maybe you missed. You can catch them, Charliecrimebuster.com, Charliecrimebuster.com. And don't forget, we now have a brand new YouTube station. Yep, we're on YouTube. We'd like for you to check us out there. And we'll have all that in the show notes. Every week, James Buckland and I, we talk about the episode that we drop. So I invite you to run over there to YouTube. And if you didn't catch all that, don't worry. We got all those links in the show notes. All you got to do is what? Yep, that's right. Click. Just click, and you'll be there. All right, housekeeping's out of the way. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty on the crime train today. Well, today, yep, we're going to talk about some of those things we did not know. Yep, now that we do know. Yep, things that we did not know that we do know now. That's regarding the murder of 54th Street. We now know that the alleged killer's name, well, it's Luigi Mangione. Yep, Luigi. He's the man now, well, they charge him with murder in last week's deadly shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Here are some of the things we know. Well, we know how old he is. He's 26 years of age. And he was identified as a person of interest there in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where he was arrested on firearms and other charges. That's after he was spotted there, I guess, at the Big Macville. I'm talking about McDonald's in Altoona. And, of course, all over the country, they were looking for this guy. And today, if you want to know where he is, you'd like to know where he is, well, he's there in a state correctional institution. Yep, in Huntington, Pennsylvania. Yep. There, they're holding him under maximum security. And, you know, the popo up there, the correctional officers, those brave folks, they're telling us a little bit about him, talking to some of the news agencies, and they're saying he's not been violent. That's according to correction officials. They said he was not under a suicide watch or any kind of psychological order at this time in prison. They also said he wasn't in solitary confinement. However, a guy like that, with all that national recognition, kind of puts a target on his back. So they put him in a cell by himself, and he doesn't get to interact with other inmates. They said he's not yet gone outside, but he will as time goes by. So who is this guy? We now know things from people who knew him and about the investigation that tell us a little bit about him. What about his family? Well, we found out that he's the son of a prominent Maryland family. That's right, prominent Maryland family. He was at the top of his class at a private school. He graduated from an Ivy League college. You see, when you look at his background, this guy, Luigi, he seemed to have everything going for him. That's at least according to a lot of people who knew him, his friends. Remember I told you he came from a prominent family? Well, they were up in Baltimore. And they were known for businesses. Yep, they had businesses. They were successful. Those businesses included country clubs, nursing homes, and even a radio station. That's according to local media. His grandparents, they were Nicholas and Mary Mangione. They were real estate developers up there. And they actually bought the Turf Valley Country Club. That was in 1978. They also bought another country club, Hayfields in the Hunt Valley, 1986. I'm just telling you all this, that this guy has a rich heritage. He even includes a state lawman as his cousin. I said lawman, really lawmaker. He wasn't a lawman, he was a lawmaker. Those guys that you vote for, you put them in the state senate and in the House of Representatives. Yep, he even had one of those. He had one of those as a cousin. He was Republican state lawmaker, Nino Mangione. And Mangione, of course, released a statement for the family. Said that his family, this family that was rich in a heritage, that they were shocked, devastated. Went on to say, we offer our prayers to the family of Brian Thompson, and we ask people to pray for all involved. Pretty classy statement. I can imagine they're devastated. I would be if my son did this, wouldn't you? And he has even other attorneys, high attorneys who knew the family, so not hard to figure out that they would get him representation. The other was a defense attorney, Thomas Marnick. And he talked about how he was shocked. He said, you wouldn't think someone that had this privilege and means from a family that's known for doing so much in the community would do something like this. Hey, by the way, that private school that we talked about that he attended, the private school elite, it was an all-boys Gilman school in Baltimore. But, my friend, listen, he did much more than attend that school. He was a valedictorian. Usually you don't get that unless you're pretty smart and you have some high academic achievements. One of his classmates said, he said that Mangione really didn't have any enemies, and said this. Now, listen, he said he was a valedictorian for a reason. Well, he went on to graduate from the University of Pennsylvania. He had a bachelor's and a master's degree. Yep, master's degree in computer science. Yep, that's according to the school. Hey, listen, this guy, he even developed a video game. Yep, a video game called Development Club. Now, there are those who were with him when he attended college. And they, of course, described him like we do a lot of these guys that go off the rails. Described him as super normal, a smart person. He got a pretty good job, by the way. Probably right out of school. He was employed as a data engineer for TrueCar. Yep, TrueCar. That's a digital retailing website for new and used cars. You've probably seen that. Maybe even checked it out. That was on his social media profiles. And the company, boy, they spoke real quick, though, when they found out that this guy who worked for them was this guy who murdered this insurance executive. They quickly said he had not worked there since 2023. And it appears that sometime he just decided to go off the grid. go off the grid. I say sort of go off the grid if you call going to Hawaii off the grid. And there in beautiful Hawaii, he spent some time co-living in a surfing community called Surf Break. There was a young lady there who knew him, Sarah Nehemiah. She said that he left that community because of a back injury. And that back injury, and that's what a lot of people are talking about, the motive that brought him to attack the insurance industry by taking out an innocent man. Well, they said that back injury, it worsened as he was surfing and hiking. You know, that's a lot of strain on the back. Now, I'm not a surfer, I guarantee you that. But I've done some hiking, and sometimes it will get your back. His friends even told U.S. media, they told them that, well, they said he had surgery on his back. And there was found a background image on a X account. And it looks like it belonged to Luigi. It showed an X-ray of a spine with hardware in it. Had done some work on his back. They even found a Reddit account, and there he posted about his struggles with chronic back pain and what he called brain fog. Brain fog. Yet there were other people who said he didn't really complain about it, but it did prohibit him. It kept him from doing a lot of things he'd like to do. You know, our health issues can keep us from doing things we used to love to do. Well, in his young life, it kept him from being involved in some activity. That friend was R.J. Martin. He lost contact with him sometime, but he said that he believed that his former friend, he said, I would think that he would have never conceived of hurting anyone else. And he said, like so many people, it just doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense. We do know that there was a site called Goodreads. That's where you review books. And apparently he talked about 2 books about back pain back in 2022. One of them was called Crooked, Outwitting the Back Pain Industry. You see where I'm going with this, don't you? I mean, you can see that there was a time when he had this injury, and now he's reading up on things. We know that he was a very astute student, probably loved to do research. And so he's now researching what's happening in the insurance industry. And doesn't take a rocket scientist, doesn't take a valedictorian of an Ivy League school to know that a lot of people just are put out with the insurance industry because they're making so much money and people are spending hard-earned money to this industry, and sometimes they're turned down. But something else happened while he was on that research binge. That's what I call it. James Buckland talks about getting on a binge on some of our podcasts. Well, I believe he got on a binge and he began to research his things and he ran across somebody else. Boy, you're going to know who this person is. Guy by the name of Ted Kaczynski. Yep. The Unabomber. The Unabomber. Remember him? Boy, he had this nation in an uproar. Yep, in an uproar. Now, I call the Unabomber another infamous criminal. I also call him a domestic terrorist because he brought a lot of terror to this country. And you know what else I call him? I call him a coward. Yep, a coward. Doesn't take a lot of good courage, not valor courage, to leave bombs around to tear families apart just to make a statement. Nor, my friend, may I say, it does not take good courage, valor courage, to shoot someone in the back. Well, he looked at this guy by the name of Ted Kaczynski. He looked at the Unabomber, and he actually gave 4 stars to a text and called Industrial Society and its future by this Unabomber. Now, that was back in 1978 when, the Unabomber carried out a bombing campaign. It killed 3 people, injured dozens of others, and I mean injured them in a serious way. He was arrested in 1996. Now, Mangione, he did acknowledge that Well, he acknowledged the Unabomber was a violent individual, but he also described him as a political revolutionary. See where we're going with all this? I think that this guy, he liked that term political revolutionary, and that's what he saw himself as. Now, remember I told you that somewhere he went off the grid? Well, he went off the grid to the point that his own mom, his own mother, reported him missing last month to San Francisco authorities, telling them she had not heard from her son since July. Well, to sum up some of this background, we can see that our killer, that's right, I said killer. I can't believe that people have the audacity to call him a hero for the cause. A hero, my friend, does not shoot somebody who's innocent, a father, a husband, in the back and run. But to sum it up, he had a health issue that was bothering him. He read some off-the-wall stuff, got radicalized from Ted Kaczynski, and he became what I call a domestic terrorist. He called him a political revolutionary. He's nothing more than a domestic terrorist who have to hurt innocent people to make statements. We now know that he rode into New York on a bus and he executed Brian Thompson, a man who had a wife and children. And yet people are stunned that this was a guy who murdered him. Now next I'm going to tell you some things about the case and his time on the run, things we know now that we did not know then. But right now it's time to take a break from the bleak stuff and share with you something to make you smile. It is now time for Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, now today's Crazy Crook is not a Florida man, but a Virginia man. That's right. And this crime, well, occurred in an area that I lived in for several years and worked there as a special police officer with the Chesterfield County Police Department. So, my friend, this one is close to me, even though it occurred several miles away among some of the greatest people on earth. Yep, a special hello to all my friends up in Chesterfield County, Virginia. Yep, a Virginia man, he was arrested after allegedly, now get this, trying to steal more than $1,000 worth of items from Walmart. Now, there's a lot of crooks that try to steal from Walmart, right? But not a lot of crooks, hold on to it, would try to do that right in front of dozens of cops, who were at the store for a holiday event. Yep, a Chesterfield County Walmart, well, it was hosting its annual Shop with a Cop. Yep, Shop with a Cop. That was an event where local police partnered with children who don't have the means to help them pick out gifts for the holidays. And that was on Sunday when the would-be bandit struck. But the overwhelming presence of law enforcement, it didn't stop 32-year-old Hector Valquez from trying to make off with nearly $1,400 worth of merchandise. Nearly 50 police officers, sheriff's deputies, was all around the store at the time of this attempted theft. That's what Chesterfield County Police Lieutenant James Lamb told CBS 6. Now, security footage showed our crazy crook trying to hide bulks of items on his person as he attempted to leave the store. Well, of course, the officers were notified of a shoplifting in progress right at the very store they all were stationed at, and they began to look around and didn't take them long to find him. We approached from different directions. He tried to escape out of the back of the store, and there we nabbed him. I think he was stunned. That's what Lieutenant told CBS 6. Officers, they were scratching their head. That this guy tried to commit a crime, even with clear police presence all around the area. He said we had 30 to 40 marked patrol cars in the parking lot. When we found his vehicle, it was facing where all the patrol cars were. He would have had to have seen them. Yet it seemed it didn't matter to him. Well, as you can guess, he's a repeat shoplifting offender, had an active warrant out for his arrest for failure to appear in court, along with several open larceny cases in Chesterfield County. Well, on the top of all those open cases, well, guess what? Now he's facing felony charge, grand larceny, for his holiday heist. Yep, this guy who decided to do shoplifting in front of 50 to 60 cops, cars all parked around him, probably more in the store. 30 to 40 marked patrol cars, 50, 60 cops. This guy who decided to shoplift in front of over 50 cops is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. All right, now back to our main focus, what we know now that we did not know before. We know now that, according to law enforcement sources, well, they found a notebook as they arrested him. Now, in that notebook, now listen to this. He had actually written that he had considered using a bomb. Remember, I talked about the Unabomber? Yep. But he decided on a shooting because it would be more targeted, would not put other innocent lives in danger. You know, I believe that this was just a start, my friend. I believe he would have got bolder and probably even graduated to becoming a bomber himself. Remember earlier I told you he had a fascination with the Unabomber? Well, guess how the Unabomber got around to plant his deadly bombs? Think about it. The Unabomber rode a bus, just like our killer on 54th Street rode a bus into town. Now, while he's been in custody, he's not made incriminating statements. Been quiet about it. But there's a lot of evidence that we can look on the peripheral to see. For instance, there were fingerprints. They found fingerprints on a water bottle and a protein bar wrapper. That was near where Thompson was killed. And they matched the fingerprints that they took for him from Mangione when they arrested him that day. Police also said that fingerprints on a phone found at the scene was a match to Mangione. So we now know that phone they found, that once they open it up, it's untelling what they're going to find. A lot of good stuff to tie them to the crime, I bet. Now, like we told you last week, or when we did the YouTube channel, the gun that the alleged gunman used, well, it was a special gun. I said it definitely was not a Glock. Well, when they arrested him there in Altoona, they found a ghost gun. Yep, a ghost gun. Now, ghost guns, as you know, are firearms assembled from parts that lack serial numbers, making them almost untraceable by law enforcement. But guess what? When you nab the violator and he has the weapon with him, and then you can have shell casings you can match it to, well, you find you have a match. And that's exactly what happened when they matched it to the 3 9mm shell casings from the shooting in New York. Remember, he left those shell casings with a message on them? Well, they also found a suppressor with it. That's again, which is consistent with the weapon used in the shooting. And in his backpack, that gun was actually a 3-printed ghost gun. Had a loaded Glock magazine. Even though it wasn't a Glock, it was a loaded Glock magazine. And that had those 9mm full metal jacket rounds. And a 3D printed silencer. Also, they found clothing and a mask, all consistent with the suspect. Yep, this guy is for sure going away. Now, last week on the podcast, yours truly joined a whole army of broadcasters and podcasters that urged the public that if they see something, they should say something. And thankfully now we know that a customer at McDonald's did indeed see this guy. According to court documents, the police officers found Mangione there sitting at a table, the back of McDonald's, wearing a blue medical mask, looking at the laptop with a backpack on the floor near the table. And guess what? When the officers asked him to pull the mask down, they said they recognized him immediately from those photos. They also asked him for his ID, and he gave them a New Jersey ID. And that ID, of course, was a fake one. They asked him if he'd ever been to New York recently. And that, you probably have already heard, is when he became quiet, started to shake. Yep, he was caught. Then after a while, he actually gave his real name after he was told he was going to be arrested if he lied about his identity. When they asked him why he lied about his name, he said, well, I clearly shouldn't have. Well, a lot of things you shouldn't have, buddy. And now you're going to pay the price for it. And one of those IDs, by the way, that they found, it matched the fake New Jersey ID that he used to check in to that Manhattan hostel before the shooting. That's what the commissioner said. You know, it is refreshing for me to report that many people saw something and said something. In fact, the NYPD received 400 tips to Crime Stoppers about the case. He said all of them were vetted. 30 were very helpful. You remember they were offering a reward up to $10,000. That was the New York City police. Then the FBI, they offered a reward up to $50,000. That makes $60,000. Now, in just one moment, I'm going to share with you a surprise about this case. Yep, a surprise about this case. But first, I want to take just a moment to invite you to join our producer, James Buckland, and myself, as we will discuss this very podcast on our new YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and /Charliecrimebuster, and you can find out all about that. You can get caught up, and you can get some new stuff. And don't forget to subscribe. Catch the new one. So back to our focus. Investigators working on the theory that the motive, of course, is this animosity he had toward the healthcare industry. But there is a surprise that we learned just this week. You ready for it? Well, Luigi Mangione, the suspected alleged accused guy who fatally shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York City last week, he was not a customer of United Health. That's right. Him or his family, as far as they could tell, was not a customer of United Health. But the police said he had identified that company as one of the largest corporations in America. That's with his manifesto writings, remember? The Unabomber had his manifesto. Well, this wannabe Unabomber type guy, he also had his manifesto, and he talked about the fact that this was one of the largest corporations in the healthcare industry. So there you have it, my friend. All this is happening because this guy had a beef with the insurance company, and he decided he wanted to be revolutionary. Well, I got to tell you, he's nothing more than a coward who shot a guy in the back. And while we all can agree that we need to tighten up some things in this country, and it may be the health insurance industry needs a look at, the way to make that statement is not to kill innocent people. The way to make that statement is to vote for representatives that can make a difference, to make statements, even to peacefully protest if you want to. But it's not to take innocent lives. So now he's been nabbed. What's going to happen next? Well, they're going to extradite him to New York City. There he's going home for second-degree murder. You say second-degree murder. Yep. In New York City, there are certain things that have to happen in order for you to bump it to first degree, like killing a police officer or some sort of political guy or a bunch of other things. However, if there is another felony maybe that's linked to it, it could be bumped up to first-degree murder. Right now, we know he's charged with second-degree murder. And we know that there's going to be a hearing probably as early as this week. And maybe they want to waive extradition and get him there quicker. Because I think that maybe his attorneys are thinking, well, up there in liberal New York City, we might have a little better treatment for our inmate. Who knows? Anyway, we're going to keep you all up to date on it. Hey, by the way, don't forget, join us this week, YouTube channel. We're going to talk about this case, James Buckland and myself. That is YouTube /Charliecrimebuster. Well, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert. For the life you save, it may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @CharlieCrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/CharlieCrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.